Good evening, everyone. I'm Teresa Malone. I'm the Executive Director with the Mississippi Nurses Association, and I just want to say thank you to everyone for joining us this evening. I know that some of you are in facilities and you have joined together with your co-workers to listen in, and we also want to say a very special thank you to the first responders that are joining us. And likewise, we want to recognize an incredibly important person, and that is Ruth Ann Rigby. Ruth Ann is co-founder of the First Responders of Mississippi. Unfortunately, she could not join us tonight, but she did ask me to express her thanks to all of you, and we want to tell her thank you as well. Excuse me. Our presenter for this evening, excuse me, y'all, is incredibly well known, and she is actually backed by special request from you that have attended in the past. I do want to let everyone know that the presentation tonight will be recorded. So if you have colleagues that were not able to join you, they can always access our recordings at our website on the M&A website. And I am going to give the most abbreviated introduction of Miss Laurie Ryba because of this reason. She has a wealth of information to share tonight, and we want to give her as much time as possible. But Laurie started her nursing career by moving to the Mississippi Gulf Coast and working in family practice before opening a satellite clinic for Gulfport OBGYN, where she practiced women's health care. In 2008, she opened Enhanced Wellness, which is an integrative medicine practice with a primary focus of enhanced contemporary medicine through natural healing. She has more than 25 years of diverse experience in working at Enhanced Wellness. And I have to say, if some of you have listened to her presentations in the past, it is absolutely amazing the information that she brings. And from my standpoint, the information she brings that everyone needs to know about. And that's the case this evening. Some of us are getting, I don't want to say older, maybe let's say wiser. And with that, you do start worrying a little bit about your brain and how that may change over time. And so tonight's presentation is absolutely what we need to hear. It's going to provide us some very useful information, no matter your age, that I think you are going to want to take advantage of. And I also think you're going to want to share this with your friends and colleagues as well. So with that, I'm going to thank Laurie Ryba for joining us, and I'm going to turn this over to her. Laurie, thank you so much.
Thank you, Teresa. Good evening, everyone. Tonight's title is The Brain Train. And we're going to be talking about a couple of different things dealing with brain function and memory and improving our brain function and our memory, and hopefully preventing organic brain disease and lifestyle problems that can cause issues with the brain. So we're going to be kind of working through all of that, and at the end is my favorite part. Well, it's probably about the last 15 minutes, and this is only about 25-minute long presentation, so we'll go quick, but we're going to play some games at the end. We're going to talk about some different things that you can do in your day-to-day life that's going to help improve the way your brain functions and improve your memory and that kind of thing, your day-to-day memory. So, you know, the issue that we get into, I think probably the most often, is that so many people complain about brain fog. It's crazy the number of patients that I have that come in that their two main complaints are brain fog and fatigue, and they kind of go hand in hand. So some of the systems that we deal with that affect the brain, everything is kind of connected. So when we're looking at one system, well, we can't look at just one system. We have to look at all of the systems. So basically what we're going to do tonight is start with breaking that down. So when some people have issues with the neurological system, which is the brain, of course, and tonight, that's the most important organ that we have, right? at least for this presentation. The brain innervates and runs every system in our body except our gut, actually. The central nervous system does, but not exactly the brain. Our brain makes us who we are, or our lack of brain use makes us who we are also. But the difficult thing is that when we have something going on with the brain, we can't do necessarily a scan easily or blood work or that kind of thing to figure out what's causing problems. And so when I was in a workshop in one of my master's programs, one of my classes, and we were learning about brain function and traumatic brain injuries. And one of the things that the head professor was Dr. Daniel Amen, who, if you want to know more about traumatic brain injuries and healing the brain, he's written a lot of really good books. Dr. Daniel Amen, A-M-E-N. And he founded the Amen Centers, which are clinics that work with patients to heal the brain from brain trauma, organic brain disease, that kind of thing. And he also did some studies with the NFL players. And this is really interesting because the NFL players, this is when all of this began with the concussion studies and that kind of thing. And Dr. Amen led a lot of those studies. And the NFL players that were studied were having symptoms of severe depression, anxiety, mood swings, violent behaviors, and even suicide. And the players that committed suicide would actually kill themselves by shooting themselves in the gut and not the head, so that their brains could be used for studying, because they knew something was going on with their brain from all of the traumatic brain injuries from playing football. So Dr. Amen devised a scan, which is really interesting, that it's called a SPECT scan, that scans the brain, and they look at the different parts of the brain, and where there's a traumatic brain injury, the brain, the SPECT scan has a big dark hole. So when you have someone like an NFL player or someone with Alzheimer's or that kind of thing that have had a lot of brain injuries for one reason or another, their brains look like Swiss cheese. They've got big dark holes in different areas where there's no blood supply. So they can work through behavioral things that help improve the brain, which is some of the things we're going to be actually talking about, that some of the tricks that they use and the games that they use to help people heal their brain. And then he's also got a lot of supplements, Dr. Amen does, that he suggests high dose omega-3s, preferably the liquid omega-3s, because they tend to absorb best. And then calming herbs like ashwagandha and rhodiola and things like that that are calming for the adrenals and supportive to the adrenals. But the interesting thing is that they go back after 2 years on these treatment plans and the therapies, and the dark holes have healed a lot in the brain. And it is absolutely amazing to see the difference in the patient's outcome with their initial brain SPECT scan and their new SPECT scan, and the difference in their lives and their family bondings, and it's just amazing to see. So another one that I wanted to mention real quick is soccer players. And this is one that I see a lot. They're not letting the kids do it as much anymore, but the soccer players that head the ball, the ball comes down and they bunk it with their head. And every time a soccer player hits the ball with their head, they're causing literally a traumatic brain injury in the frontal aspect of the brain. And that's scary because women, this is the frontal aspect of the brain, is the part of the brain that women use for decision making and empathy and bonding, and not having that aspect of the brain functioning well causes some severe depression and anxiety and that kind of thing. So these are things that follow these young girls and women through their entire lives. Like they're not able to bond with their spouses, and they have rage, and they're not able to bond well with their kids, and learning and reading, and it's crazy what it's causing. And it causes a more of a problem for the females, because the males, they use more of the central aspect of the brain for all of this, and actually the temporal aspects and that kind of thing. So it's not just a frontal lobe for the males, that they use a little bit larger surface area, which we won't get into a debate on right now. So anyway, some of these young girls that I've had in my practice are just outstanding, the way that once they figure out what's going on and why they're struggling the way they are, they're able to actually start working on healing the brain, and it works. I have a young lady that I met her. She came to me at like 42, 43 years old. Her name was Lauren. And Lauren was suddenly having problems with progressive anxiety and irritability. And she was having like memory problems, short-term memory problems, even some long-term memory problems. And she noticed that she had started having difficulty reading, like tracking and retaining information and that kind of thing. And through our first visit, and my asking her a lot of questions, we realized that she had 4 traumatic brain injuries within a 5-year period, which is excessive, obviously. And each time you have a traumatic brain injury, if one hasn't been healed, they just multiply. So they get worse and worse and worse with each time, and more symptoms. So some of the things that I did with Lauren was we used lifestyle changes, obviously, limiting alcohol, sweets, processed foods, things like that. Sleep cycles, promoting sleep cycles. We use the high dose omega-3s, calming supplements, that kind of thing, hormone balance. And I've referred her to, we have a optometrist here in Hattiesburg that specializes in traumatic brain injuries, and she works through teaching the patient to read again by teaching their eyeballs to work with their brain. It's really fascinating. But Lauren's outcome was absolutely fabulous. So let's see, we've got 10 minutes. So what I'm going to do is skip through to the fun part. Basically, to improve your day-to-day brain function, decreasing your stress levels. If you're running 90 to nothing, you're going to remember nothing. You're not going to retain information. You're going to feel brain foggy and irritable and all of that. Your brain cannot function on limited sleep and high stress and poor diet. So think about those things, because Alzheimer's and organic brain disease starts developing 40 years before the first symptom. That's huge. That means what we do today is going to be what predicts our future brain function. or dysfunction. That's money in the bank for retirement when you take care of your brain. Okay, so the different types of memory, short-term, long-term, sensory, all of those, the main thing with those, not necessarily to understand each one, but to understand that each portion of memory is produced in a specific part of the brain. So those work together, but if you have an issue with one part of the brain, then you'll be lacking that part of memory. But it can be healed and improved, but it takes a lot of work. So some of the things that we can do on a day-to-day basis to improve our memory. It takes a lot of work to do this, and it's not always fun, but as you get better and better with it, it's less work and it's a little bit more fun and easier. And then you start seeing your brain functioning better and being able to read better and retain information better and that kind of thing. So one way that you can help improve recall is reading, and not just reading, but reading out loud. That's the best way. If you can read it, hear it, and then speak it, like as in reiterate it. Those are the best ways to be able to improve your memory with that. Let's see. Switching hands. This is an interesting one. So if you usually dial your phone with your right hand, dial it with your left hand. Or if you drive with your right hand, okay, maybe not. Don't drive with the wrong hand. Maybe drive with both hands. But switch up your hands because we get muscle memory, and we just don't have to do any thinking when we're using our right hand, because our right hand knows what to do. We have to teach our left hand what to do. And that's part of the brain retraining and improvement. Exercising 20 minutes 3 times a week, getting your heart rate up 3 times a week for 20 minutes at a time helps to improve the size of the hippocampus. That is the part of the brain that is responsible for a lot of our memories. And this part of the brain is what takes new information and stores it as memories. So that's really important. Oh, here's a good one. Chopsticks. Eating with chopsticks. Could you ever imagine that would help improve brain function? But number one, we're using fine motor skills and we're slowing down our eating, but we're actually having to work at it. And if you really want to get crazy, or go hungry, eat chopsticks with your left hand. Nah, I'd go hungry. So chopsticks actually help improve brain function and healing of the brain. Take yourself off autopilot. If you drive to work the same way every day, go a different way. Or if you do your passwords in your computer, always sitting down, stand up and do it. You would be amazed at how hard it is to remember your passwords when you're at a different angle on your computer. But those things, getting outside of your comfort zone, is what improves brain function. So take yourself off autopilot. There's a game that I play. Now, I don't admit this to just anybody, so I consider you guys pretty special. I play a game where if I'm standing in the grocery store line, I come up with a word, let's say watermelon, and I spell the word watermelon in my head. Half the time I do it out loud and people think I'm nuts. I say it under my breath. But you spell the word watermelon, and then you come up with as many words as you can that start with the first 2 letters of watermelon. So say we're going to do watermelon, walk, wake, wobble, whack, Walter, waiters, wacky, waffles. Anyway, so then I end up messing up and looking like an idiot because I'm sitting in the grocery store laughing at myself, looking like an idiot. But I think people have gotten used to it in my community. So another one that you can do is to practice a memory game where you look at someone and you pick out 4 things that you want to remember about them. And then later in the day, you come back in your mind and think about the 4 things about that person that you wanted to remember, like the barista, the barista, the girl that serves the coffee, had maybe gold earrings and dark hair and a yellow shirt and nose ring. So at the end of the day, you come back and you say, okay, what was it about the little coffee girl? And bring up all the things that you remember about her. And then each day you can add more people. The next day maybe do, or the next week do 2 people that day or 4 people that day, or, and build up so that you're improving the quantity of things that you're remembering. Let's see. Oh, this is an interesting one. Clenching your fist. There's something about clenching your fist that promotes circulation to specific parts of the brain that help improve memorization. I have no idea how, but it is amazing and it works. So if you're trying to remember something, if you clench your fist, your dominant hand fist, it helps you to retain information. So obviously you can't sit and study with your fist clenched, but it really does help. Doodling helps retain a lot of information, but I think that doodling, like when you're in well, maybe you're doodling now, I don't know, but it helps actually focus the brain, and it keeps the brain working in a linear fashion somehow, and keeps you focused on what you're listening to. So there's like a 25 to 30% improvement in the retention of information when someone is doodling in a meeting, which is crazy. And one of my absolute favorite ways to improve brain health and overall health is laughter. And we laugh a lot here at the office and at home, and I love laughter. And laughter is so healing in so many ways, and it's one of the best ways to improve your overall health and your brain function. So real quick, I think I've got about 1 minute left. I want to go through these again so you can write them down if you want to. And I can also post these on the ANA website. So the first way to improve your memory was listening, reading out loud, practicing moving your eyes. So reading out loud. Switching hands. So do things with your opposite hand. Exercising. 20 minutes a day, 3 times a week. Chopsticks. Take yourself off autopilot, which is learning new skills and doing something different with your different hand or in a different position or whatever you like. The word game, the watermelon game, where you make as many words as you can with the first 2 letters of your word. The 4 detail memory game is the 7th one, where you pick out 4 things in a person and memorize them, and then go back at the end of the day and remember them. And let's see, clenching your fist, doodling, laughter, my absolute favorite. All right. Let's go through. If we have any questions, please.
We do. I think some of us are still trying to get over the 40 years statement that
That's
you
pretty
made.
scary, isn't it?
Yeah, some of us are still in shock over that, but we do have a couple of statements in the chat that I want to read to you. And then I have a couple of questions that came through on my cell. So bear with me very quickly. This is from Brittany Ladner. She says, thank you so much for taking the time and sharing these techniques. I am a new NP grad and currently studying for boards. So I'm going to use them when studying. So that was very timely.
I can see her standing around doing this when she's studying.
Trisha P said, thank you, Laurie. Great as always. And I do have a couple of questions that came through. Okay. One is, and I think the question is painting or another art form beneficial to your brain?
Somebody knows me out there.
I think they do.
Yes. God, learning anything new, a new instrument, a new painting technique, anything new that you can learn is good for the brain. Anything, guitar, because you have to learn this hand, you have to learn this hand, you have to learn words and strumming sequences and all. It's amazing when you start putting things together and learning new processes, what it does for the brain. Absolutely.
And this is kind of interesting. We have a question in the chat that says, do you treat children in your clinic?
Yes, I do. But I usually try to focus on adults because that's where, the hormone balancing, integrative lifestyle and that kind of thing. But there are a lot of times that I have to see kids with special needs that can't get the integrative care that they need elsewhere. So I do see kids, but I kind of limit my numbers of kids.
And that's a perfect segue into our next question that I received via text. And that is, would you encourage parents to encourage their children to take up some of these items that you just mentioned? Would that benefit them in the future?
My gosh, that is a priceless question, because, one of the things that I worry about the most is the last presentation that I did was called digital dementia. And the best things that we can do for our kids is get them out from in front of the TV and the computers and the computer games and the Facebook and all of those things that are they're addictive for us, and they affect the way that our brain works. Can you imagine what it's doing to our children's brain functions? And their brains are still developing. So are they missing developmental steps in their brain function? I don't know, but that's very scary. And it's a great point. Yes. Anything you can do with kids, reading, just like we just talked about, reading out loud and then talking about a story is one of the absolute best ways. If you're on a trip, then you can do audiobooks and everybody uses their imagination instead of watching a movie and not needing to use any imagination.
Excellent. We also have somebody just put something else in, so I think I'm missing something here, y'all. Bear with me. This was in the chat. It says, thank you for the information. It was very informative, and I'm surprised at how many things you've mentioned that I already do that will help. I talk to myself a lot in public as well. So
it's a good way to get committed anyway.
We do have a question. What suggestions do you have for promoting reading for an older gentleman that does not use technology, needing a reminder to wear hearing aids and reminder to wear reading glasses?
Yeah. Yes. And you think about your eyeballs are part of your brain. And you've got to work them. You've got to work them to keep them talking to your brain properly. And the same thing with your hearing aids. If you aren't wearing the hearing aids on a day-to-day basis, your brain doesn't know how to use them properly. So, those are really important things. My husband will only wear his if we go somewhere that he needs to wear it, but then it's too loud, so he won't turn it on. And it's a problem. It's a real problem, because that's a huge part of brain function, is your brain being able to figure out what's going on around you. So yes, but promoting reading for an elderly, books with large print from the library is wonderful. If he doesn't like technology, that's what I would, the best thing is the large print books from the library, or audio books even.
Thank you. I know we're coming up on our time here. I do want to say that I do have 3 requests in chat for you to come back and present a part 2 and to provide some additional information on this. So we will be contacting you in the very near future, but I just want to say thank you so much for being with us tonight. I think, I know I was writing down this list. I'm sure everyone else did too. So it's going to be interesting as all of us start taking your advice, and hopefully we will see an improvement, if not now, definitely down the road.
Talking to themselves in public.
There you go. There you go. But again, thank you so much, Laurie, for
so
presenting
welcome,
this
guys.
information. And to all of you that joined us this evening, I see some names on here that are familiar. I also see some new ones. Please take advantage of these very brief but very incredibly informative webinars that we host each Thursday evening. So we will be sending out some additional information next week. We hope you join us again. And to all of you, you have a wonderful evening and a wonderful weekend. Thank y'all, everyone. Good night.
Thank you.